A desperate young woman breaks into a millionaire's mansion looking for food to save her sister. But what begins as an act of necessity sparks an unexpected bond that will change their lives forever. What secrets from the past will unite them in a fight for redemption? Anna slips silently through the shadows, feeling the cold that penetrates to her bones. Her bare feet barely make a sound on the wet pavement as she approaches the imposing mansion. The lights inside shine like a mockery of her painful reality. That night, her desperation has overcome her fear. Lucia awaits her, hungry, and Anna cannot return home empty-handed. With trembling hands, she manages to force open a half-open side window. The kitchen she finds upon entering is vast, bright, and filled with unfamiliar aromas. Marble countertops and gleaming appliances make her feel as if she has entered another world. But there is no time to admire anything. Quickly, she begins to search for something to take with her. She finds a piece of bread, some fruit, and a bottle of water. However, a sound behind her freezes her. "What do you think you're doing here?" A firm, deep voice echoes in the kitchen. Anna turns slowly, her heart pounding. In front of her stands a tall, well-dressed man with a look of disbelief and anger on his face. It is Victor, the owner of the mansion. Anna takes a step back, clutching the food to her chest as if it could protect her. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal. Please don't call the police," she pleads, her voice cracking. Her lowered gaze shows more fear than defiance. "I just need some food for my sister. She's sick." Victor watches her coldly, assessing her appearance. Her clothes are worn, her pale face and trembling hands speak of restless days, but his tone remains hard. "Your sister? And you think breaking into my house in the middle of the night is the solution?" he asks, his brow furrowed. "I had no other choice," Anna answers quickly, her voice shaking. Her eyes fill with tears. Lucia is waiting for me. I can't go back empty-handed." Victor remains silent, his eyes fixed on Anna's. Distrust and bewilderment struggle within him. Finally, he breaks the silence with an authoritative tone. "If you're telling the truth, take me to her. I want to see this for myself." "What?" Anna takes a step back, surprised. "If you don't take me now, I'll call the police," he says, pointing toward the open window. With no other option, Anna nods slowly. With her heart heavy and fear pounding in her chest, she leads him towards the exit. Victor follows her with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Outside, the night seems darker and colder than ever. The path to where Lucia waits is silent, filled with a tension that neither of them can ignore. Anna walks quickly, driven by urgency, while Victor tries to understand why he didn't stop her immediately. They both move forward into the unknown, leaving behind the warmth of the mansion and entering a world that, under the dim moonlight, seems as merciless as the life Anna and Lucia have endured until now. Victor walks behind Anna with firm steps, never taking his eyes off the petite figure leading him. His mind is a whirlwind of questions. Why didn't he call the police immediately? What led him to follow this young stranger in the middle of the night? Something in the fragility of her voice had disarmed him, even if he wouldn't admit it. They return to the kitchen of the mansion. Anna, her body tense and her gaze fixed on the floor, carefully places the food on the table. The silence between them is heavy, until Victor finally breaks it. "Speak. Tell me who you are and why you're really here," he demands, crossing his arms. Anna takes a deep breath, feeling like her words are a last chance to avoid the worst. "My name is Anna. I am 17 years old. My sister Lucia and I have been alone since my mother died, almost a year ago," she says, her voice shaking but determined. "She always worked hard, but after she was fired, she was never the same. We lost everything." Victor watches her, trying to find traces of lies in her story, but he only finds sadness in her eyes. Anna continues, unable to stop now. "Since then, we have lived as best we can. Lucia is small. She is only 7 years old, and now she is very sick. I can't buy her food or medicine. That's why I came here. I don't know what else to do." Victor's face remains impassive, but something inside him stirs. He can't help but notice the contrast between Anna's desperation and the luxury in which he lives. An uncomfortable silence falls again in the room. Anna doesn't dare look at him. Finally, Victor sighs, running a hand through his hair. "Where is your sister? he asks, his tone less stern. Anna looks up in surprise. She takes a moment before answering, as if she can't believe what she just heard. In an abandoned building, a few blocks from here, he murmurs. Victor frowns. The thought of a little girl living in such conditions makes him feel uneasy, but he can't ignore it. I'm going to take you back to her, he says, gesturing toward the door. What? Anna looks at him with wide eyes. Why? I want to see for myself if what you say is true, Victor replies, his tone firm. If you're lying, you won't get another chance. Anna nods, feeling a mix of relief and fear. Without another word, she guides him towards the exit. In the chill of the night, they both move towards where Lucia is waiting. As they walk, Victor can't help but wonder if he's making a mistake by getting involved in this. But something in him knows he can't turn back now. The walk to Lucia's shelter takes place in tense silence. Anna walks with quick steps, feeling the urgency to get there, while Victor follows her with the same firmness he had shown from the beginning. The city seems more hostile under the dim moonlight. The dark alleys and neglected buildings form a desolate landscape that contrasts even more with the elegance of the mansion they have just left. Finally, they reach their destination, a dilapidated building with broken windows and graffiti on the walls. The smell of damp and mold fills the air. Victor pauses for a moment, staring in disbelief at the ruin Anna points out. This is where they live, she says, her voice barely audible. She avoids looking at him, aware of what he might be thinking. Victor doesn't answer. His expression hardens as he follows Anna inside. The sound of their footsteps echoes through the empty hallways, and the dim light makes every corner seem even more gloomy. Anna moves with familiarity, as if these dark corridors were a map she has memorized over time. They arrive at a small room on the second floor. The space is filled with old mattresses, worn blankets, and few belongings. In one corner, a thin, pale girl sleeps curled up under a torn blanket. Anna quickly approaches, kneeling beside her. Lucia, I'm here, she whispers, gently stroking her sister's hair. Victor watches the scene in silence, his gaze fixed on the girl. There is something about her extreme thinness and the ashen color of her skin that makes his stomach turn. It is clear that she is sick, perhaps more than Anna had let on. It's worse than I thought, Victor murmurs, not realizing that he had spoken out loud. Anna listens and nods, her expression full of concern. She's been like this for days. I don't know what to do, she says, her voice breaking as she hugs her sister tightly. Victor feels a pang of guilt, though he can't quite put his finger on why. His gaze scans the room again. He's never seen such heartbreaking poverty up close, and something inside him begins to crack. This is no place for a sick girl, he finally declares, his tone softer than usual. Anna looks at him with hope and fear at the same time. What do you mean? He asks, not daring to finish the sentence. Victor sighs deeply. He knows that what he is about to say will change everything. But the image of Lucia, so fragile and vulnerable, leaves him no other choice. I'll take you to my house, at least for now. Your sister needs a doctor, and she won't be able to get better here, he says with a determination that surprises even himself. Anna blinks, unable to process what she just heard. She wants to doubt it, but the sincerity in Victor's voice gives her a glimmer of hope. Would he really do that for us? She asks, incredulous. Victor nods, avoiding her gaze. I'm not sure why, but yes. I can't let a little girl die in this place. Reply. Anna feels tears welling up in her eyes, but this time they are not tears of despair, but rather of a relief she has not felt in a long time. Without another word, Victor picks Lucia up in his arms, surprised at how light she is. As he carries her out of the building, Anna follows, her heart torn between fear of trusting and hope that perhaps her luck is finally changing. Dawn begins to light up the mansion as Victor enters carrying Lucia, with Anna following close behind. The mansion, with its grandeur and luxury, feels like another world compared to the place they just left. Anna observes everything around her cautiously, while Lucia remains asleep, exhausted and weak in Victor's arms. The arrival of the two girls does not go unnoticed. The governess, Clara, finds them in the hall with a puzzled expression that quickly turns to disapproval. Mr. Victor, what does this mean? He asks, crossing his arms. Call a doctor, he answers, ignoring Clara's tone. This girl is sick and needs immediate attention. Clara seems to want to protest, but Victor's firm gaze silences her. Without saying anything else, he leaves to do what he was asked. Meanwhile, Victor takes Lucia to one of the guest rooms and settles her into bed. Anna stays near the door, watching nervously. She'll be fine here, Victor says without taking his eyes off the girl. But I need you to trust me and follow the rules of this house. This won't be easy. Anna nods quickly, feeling a mix of gratitude and anxiety. She doesn't know what to expect from this man who, until a few hours ago, seemed to be just another distant and unattainable figure. As the days go by, Anna and Lucia's presence begins to disrupt the mansion's routine. The employees, accustomed to a rigid and controlled environment, look at the two girls with suspicion. Clara, in particular, is skeptical. Although she obeys Victor's orders, she can't help but cast disapproving glances at Anna every time she sees her. For her part, Anna does her best to stay out of the way. She spends most of her time looking after Lucia, who is beginning to improve thanks to the care of the doctor Victor hired. However, she can't help but feel like an intruder. The opulence of the mansion and the coldness of some of the employees make her constantly feel out of place. Victor watches all of this from a distance. Though he won't admit it, Anna and Lucia's presence is beginning to affect him in ways he didn't expect. The mansion, which he had always considered a refuge, now seems too big and empty. Lucia's soft laughter as she begins to regain her strength fills the spaces in a way he's never experienced before. One afternoon, Victor finds Anna in the kitchen, cleaning up after having prepared tea for Lucia. The young woman stops when she sees him and lowers her gaze as if she were expecting a reproach. "How is your sister?" Victor asks, his voice more friendly than he intended. "Better, thanks to you," Anna answers hesitantly. Then she looks at him directly, bravely. "I know it's not easy having us here, but really, thank you." Victor nods, uncomfortable with gratitude, but says nothing more. He walks out of the kitchen, leaving Anna to her thoughts. For both of them, these small interactions are a reminder that their lives have changed in ways neither of them had anticipated. As the new routine begins to settle in, both Anna and Victor sense that something deeper is happening. An unexpected connection begins to form, though neither of them is ready to admit it yet. One afternoon, while Lucia sleeps in her room, Anna wanders through the halls of the mansion. Curiosity pushes her to explore the place that has now become, albeit temporarily, her home. Every corner exudes luxury, from the paintings on the walls down to the antique, perfectly polished furniture. Yet there is something about the house that feels eerily familiar. Arriving in the West Wing, she finds a room decorated with photographs and mementos. Some of the pictures show a woman that Anna immediately recognizes. Her heart stops for a moment as she approaches one of the photos. It is her mother, much younger, dressed in a service uniform. She is standing with other employees, all smiling. A torrent of emotions floods through Anna. She remembers her mother's stories about a job she once had at a fancy house, but which ended abruptly. Her dismissal had been the beginning of her family's decline. Victor walks into the living room and finds her staring at the photograph. Seeing her expression, he knows something is not right. "What's wrong?" he asks, his tone serious but not hostile. Anna looks at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and reproach. "My mother worked here," she says, her voice shaking, pointing at the photo. "She always talked about this house. She said she got fired, and I never understood why. Everything changed after that. We lost our house, and she was never the same again." Victor frowns, trying to remember. His mind searches through the years he has spent isolated in his own life, delegating decisions and trusting his employees to handle day-to-day affairs. "Your mother?" he asks, as if he needs to confirm it for himself. "Yes, her name was Beatrice," Anna answers, her voice heavy with suppressed emotion. "She always did the best she could for us, but you threw her out, and that destroyed her." Victor feels a pang of guilt. Beatrice. The name finally brings back vague memories of a maid who had worked at the mansion years ago. He couldn't remember the details of her dismissal, but he knew that back then she had left everything in the hands of Clara, her housekeeper. "I didn't know." He tries to explain, but his words sound empty even to him. "You didn't know?" Anna interrupts him, her tone rising slightly. Maybe he didn't care, but his decisions ruined our lives. Victor doesn't know how to respond. For the first time, he feels the weight of the consequences of his indifference. He had always lived in his bubble, removed from the lives of those who worked for him. Now seeing Anna, he understands that his carelessness had a deeper impact than he had ever imagined. "I'm sorry," he says finally, with a sincerity he rarely expresses. Anna watches him for a moment, trying to gauge the authenticity of his words. She finally nods, though her face still reflects pain. "I don't know if that changes anything, but I had to say it," he murmurs before leaving the room. Victor is left alone, staring at the photo of Beatrice. For the first time in a long time, he feels compelled to reflect on his past. As he looks at the picture, he understands that he cannot change what happened, but perhaps he can still do something to redeem himself. Victor spends the night in his office, unable to sleep. Anna's revelation about his mother has left him restless. As he goes through old documents and files, he finds references to Beatrice. Her dismissal was decided by Clara under the justification of cutting costs and maintaining efficiency. But now those words sound hollow to him, excuses to justify an action that should never have been allowed. For the first time, Victor is confronted with something he has always avoided: the possibility that his success and comfort have been built on decisions that have caused suffering to others. His conscience, which had remained dormant for years, begins to awaken with force. The next morning, he finds Anna in the living room with Lucia, who is recovered enough to play with some small dolls that Clara had reluctantly given her. The little girl's laughter fills the room, but Victor can't help but feel out of place. "Anna, I need to talk to you," he says, interrupting the moment. Anna looks at him, surprised, but nods and follows him to his office. She sits down opposite him with a cautious expression. "I've reviewed everything about what happened to your mother," Victor begins, his tone serious but full of sincerity. "What was done to her was unfair, and although it was not a direct decision of mine, I accept my responsibility. I never bothered to understand the consequences of what was happening in this house, and I deeply regret it." Anna watches him in silence, trying to process his words. Although his apologies don't erase the suffering they've experienced, there's something in his tone that seems genuine. "So what now?" when she asks, crossing her arms. "You just say you're sorry and that's it?" Victor tilts his head, acknowledging the validity of her question. "No, I want to do something about it, not just for you and Lucia, but also for other people who may be going through the same thing. I have consulted some lawyers to find out how I can help them legally, and I am considering major changes in my life." Anna looks at him, skeptical, but with a spark of hope. "What kind of changes?" he asks with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Victor takes a deep breath before answering. "I want to use part of my fortune to support children and families in situations like yours. But that's not enough. I also want to make sure that you and Lucia have a safe place to stay, where you can start over." Victor's words had a profound impact on Anna. For so long, she had seen the rich as unattainable and selfish figures. However, now she had before her a man who seemed truly willing to change. "I don't know what to say," he finally murmurs. "You don't have to say anything now," Victor replies, rising from his seat. "I just want you to know that I'm not going to back out of this. Not again." Anna nods slowly. Although there are still many doubts in her mind, she begins to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different this time. As Anna returns to Lucia, Victor is left alone in his office. For the first time in years, he feels like he is taking a different path, one that could give him a purpose beyond the walls of his mansion. The news that Victor had taken in 2 unknown girls in his mansion soon reached his social and professional circles. Although he had not shared details, rumors spread quickly, fueled by curiosity and disapproval. The morning after a dinner with close friends, Victor received the first calls. "Are you crazy, Victor?" one of his business partners asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "What are you doing with 2 orphans in your house? People are talking. This is not good for business." Victor, sitting in his office with the phone in his hand, clenched his jaw. "I'm helping 2 girls in need," he replied coldly. "I didn't know that was so incomprehensible." It's not incomprehensible, it's reckless. You're putting your reputation at stake. Think about your investments, the image of your companies. This could cost you important clients. Victor hung up without saying goodbye, tired of the same empty warnings. The calls and messages continued throughout the day. Friends, partners, and acquaintances all insisted on the same thing: to stay away from Anna and Lucia to protect his name. Even Clara, who had always been loyal, gave him a discreet warning. "Mr. Victor, I don't want to be disrespectful, but your environment is not prepared for this. Girls, they don't belong in this world, and you could be harmed." Victor fell silent, thinking. He had spent his entire life surrounded by people like those who now criticized him, and for the first time he saw clearly how superficial his relationships were. But he also knew that the cost of standing up to them would be high. That night, while having dinner with Anna and Lucia in the kitchen, a new habit she had adopted to make them feel more comfortable. Anna noticed her somber expression. "Is everything okay?" he asked, looking down at his plate. Victor looked up, surprised by the question. For a moment he considered hiding what was happening, but decided that Anna deserved the truth. "Not everyone agrees that I brought them here," he admitted with a tired smile. "Some people think this is a mistake." Anna put her spoon down on her plate, her face hardening. "If you want us to leave, I'll understand," he said, with a firmness that hid the fear he felt. Victor shook his head immediately. "No, I'm not going to back down. What I'm doing is the right thing, and if they don't like it, that's their problem, not mine." Anna watched him for a moment, trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. Finally, she nodded, though her expression remained serious. That same night, Victor made a decision. He went up to his office, turned on his desk lamp, and began writing a series of emails. In them, he explained his position clearly. He was committed to helping Anna and Lucia, and he would not allow anyone to intimidate him into changing his decision. He ended the messages with a sentence that echoed in his mind for hours. "True wealth is not in money, but in what we do with it." The next day, some answers came quickly. Some partners confirmed that they would continue working with him, albeit reluctantly. Others, however, broke off relations immediately. Victor knew that this was just the beginning of a bigger battle, but he was prepared. Meanwhile, somewhere in the mansion, Anna heard Lucia laughing as she played with the dolls Victor had given her. That sound, pure and full of life, reminded her that maybe they were starting to find something they had never had before: a place to call home. Victor walked through the mansion's garden, deep in thought. Social pressure and breakups with some of his partners had affected him more than he expected. However, every time he saw Anna taking care of Lucia or heard the girls' laughter echoing through the halls, he knew he was on the right path. That afternoon, an encounter changed the course of his thoughts. While he was reading in his office, he was visited by a representative of a local social organization. It was a middle-aged woman named Elena, who had heard about his situation and wanted to offer him help. "Mr. Victor, I have worked with children in vulnerable situations for years," said Elena, with a calm but firm voice. "I know that your decision to take Anna and Lucia in is not easy, but what you are doing is important, not only for them, but for yourself." Victor listened to her attentively, intrigued by the passion in her words. "I've thought about helping them beyond the immediate," he admitted, "but I'm not sure how to do it properly. My life has always revolved around business, not acts of charity." Elena smiled understandingly. "It's not just about charity, it's about creating a lasting impact. You have the resources to change not only the lives of Anna and Lucia, but also those of other children in similar situations. You could make a difference, not as an act of compensation, but as a real commitment." Those words resonated deeply with Victor. For days he had been struggling with a sense of guilt and responsibility, but now he saw an opportunity to transform those emotions into something concrete. That same night, Victor called his lawyer and his accountant. Together, they discussed the possibility of establishing a fund to support children in vulnerable situations. The idea was to use part of his fortune to create a project that would provide shelter, education, and medical resources to those who needed it most. "I want this fund to start with Anna and Lucia as the first beneficiaries," Victor declared, his tone firm and determined. "But it must not stop there. I want it to grow, to reach more people over time." The lawyer, although surprised by the magnitude of the idea, nodded. It is an ambitious initiative, but we can make it a reality. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings and planning. Victor met with Elena and her team to outline the scope of the project. As ideas took shape, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: real purpose. Meanwhile, Anna watched everything from a distance. Although she was still naturally distrustful, she was beginning to believe that Victor was truly committed to changing, not just for her and Lucia, but for the greater good. One afternoon, Victor gathered Anna and Lucia in the main hall. Lucia, with her energy restored, ran around the room while Anna looked at Victor with curiosity. "I want you to know something," Victor said with a slight smile. "What started as an attempt to help you two has turned into something bigger. This project is not just for you, but for many other people who also need a chance." Anna looked at him silently, processing his words. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you," he said sincerely, although the words barely seemed enough to express what he felt. Victor, for the first time in years, felt like he was doing something that really mattered. And although he knew the road would not be easy, he was willing to follow it to the end. The rays of the sun illuminated the mansion as Victor, dressed in a simple but elegant suit, reviewed the last documents with his lawyer. That day would mark a definitive change in his life. He had decided to request legal custody of Anna and Lucia. Although he knew the process would be complicated, he was determined to ensure that the girls had a stable and safe home. Anna, upon learning of his intentions, was initially incredulous. "Do you want to become our tutor?" he asked, his voice filled with surprise and suppressed emotion. Victor nodded firmly. "Yes, I think this is the right thing to do. I want them to have a better life, and I can't ensure that if they are not under my legal protection." Anna didn't know what to say. She had spent so much time mistrusting other people's intentions that this display of genuine commitment left her speechless. But deep inside, something began to give. For the first time, she felt like she could fully trust someone. The legal process was not easy. Victor faced numerous bureaucratic hurdles and pointed questions from the social workers in charge of the case. Some questioned his motives, while others were skeptical about his ability to be a father figure. "Why do you want custody of these girls?" a social worker asked him during one of the hearings. Victor, sitting in an austere but imposing room, answered without hesitation. "Because they deserve better. I don't want them to continue living in uncertainty. I am willing to take on all the responsibilities necessary to give them the future they deserve." Elena smiled understandingly. "It's not just about charity, it's about creating a lasting impact. You have the resources to change not only the lives of Anna and Lucia, but also those of other children in similar situations. You could make a difference, not as an act of compensation, but as a real commitment." Those words resonated deeply with Victor. For days he had been struggling with a sense of guilt and responsibility, but now he saw an opportunity to transform those emotions into something concrete. That same night, Victor called his lawyer and his accountant. Together, they discussed the possibility of establishing a fund to support children in vulnerable situations. The idea was to use part of his fortune to create a project that would provide shelter, education, and medical resources to those who needed it most. "I want this fund to start with Anna and Lucia as the first beneficiaries," Victor declared, his tone firm and determined. "But it must not stop there. I want it to grow, to reach more people over time." The lawyer, although surprised by the magnitude of the idea, nodded. "It is an ambitious initiative, but we can make it a reality." The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings and planning. Victor met with Elena and her team to outline the scope of the project. As ideas took shape, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: real purpose. Meanwhile, Anna watched everything from a distance. Although she was still naturally distrustful, she was beginning to believe that Victor was truly committed to changing, not just for her and Lucia, but for the greater good. One afternoon, Victor gathered Anna and Lucia in the main hall. Lucia, with her energy restored, ran around the room while Anna looked at Victor with curiosity. "I want you to know something," Victor said with a slight smile. "What started as an attempt to help you two has turned into something bigger. This project is not just for you, but for many other people who also need a chance." Anna looked at him silently, processing his words. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you," he said sincerely, although the words barely seemed enough to express what he felt. Victor, for the first time in years, felt like he was doing something that really mattered. And although he knew the road would not be easy, he was willing to follow it to the end. The rays of the sun illuminated the mansion as Victor, dressed in a simple but elegant suit, reviewed the last documents with his lawyer. That day would mark a definitive change in his life. He had decided to request legal custody of Anna and Lucia. Although he knew the process would be complicated, he was determined to ensure that the girls had a stable and safe home. Anna, upon learning of his intentions, was initially incredulous. "Do you want to become our tutor?" he asked, his voice filled with surprise and suppressed emotion. Victor nodded firmly. "Yes, I think this is the right thing to do. I want them to have a better life, and I can't ensure that if they are not under my legal protection." Anna didn't know what to say. She had spent so much time mistrusting other people's intentions that this display of genuine commitment left her speechless. But deep inside, something began to give. For the first time, she felt like she could fully trust someone. The legal process was not easy. Victor faced numerous bureaucratic hurdles and pointed questions from the social workers in charge of the case. Some questioned his motives, while others were skeptical about his ability to be a father figure. "Why do you want custody of these girls?" a social worker asked him during one of the hearings. Victor, sitting in an austere but imposing room, answered without hesitation, "Because they deserve better. I don't want them to continue living in uncertainty. I am willing to take on all the responsibilities necessary to give them the future they deserve." His words, full of sincerity, began to change the perceptions of those around him. Even Anna, who attended some of the meetings, began to see him in a new light. After weeks of waiting, the day of the decision finally arrived. Anna and Lucia were sitting next to Victor in the courtroom when the judge handed down his ruling. After reviewing all the evidence and testimony presented, this court grants legal custody of Anna and Lucia to Mr. Victor Martin, the judge declared, gently tapping his gavel. Relief filled the room. Lucia, not fully understanding the magnitude of what was happening, clung to Victor's arm with a radiant smile. Anna, for her part, felt a silent tear roll down her cheek. For the first time in a long time, the weight of fear and uncertainty began to lift. That evening, back at the mansion, Victor organized a small celebration. Clara, though still a bit reserved, had begun to accept the change in the house. He prepared a special dinner, and for the first time, everyone sat at the table as a family. "This is just the beginning," Victor said, looking at Anna and Lucia with a smile. "There is much more I want to do, but the important thing is that we are together now." Anna, unable to contain herself, responded with a simple but meaningful, "Thanks for everything." Victor, who had never thought of himself as a father figure, felt a warmth he couldn't explain. At that moment, he understood that he had not only transformed Anna and Lucia's lives, but his own as well. A year after that night, when Anna burst into the mansion's kitchen, the landscape had changed completely. Where silence and solitude had once reigned, there was now laughter, voices, and quick footsteps filling the hallways. The transformation had not only reached Anna and Lucia, but also Victor and everything that once represented his life. That morning, the three of them were standing in front of a brand new building, just open. A large sign at the entrance read, "Beatrice Martin Support Center," in honor of Anna and Lucia's mother. It was a shelter for homeless children, a project that Victor had promoted with the help of Elena and other collaborators who had joined the cause. The building was modern and welcoming, full of colors and spaces designed to make children feel safe and valued. "Are you ready?" Victor asked Anna as they watched the hustle and bustle of children entering the place for the first time. Anna nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Yes, this is what she would have wanted," he replied, referring to his mother. Victor smiled. It had been a year of changes, sacrifices, and learning. He had lost some partners and superficial friendships, but he had gained something much more valuable, a family and a purpose that gave meaning to his life. Inside the center, Lucia ran alongside other children, her energy and enthusiasm lighting up the place. She had fully recovered her health, and with Victor's support, had begun attending school. Her laughter resonated as a reminder of what was possible when someone dared to change. Victor took the microphone at the opening ceremony. Although he was not a man accustomed to public speaking, The words flowed naturally. A year ago, my life was very different. I believed that success was measured in numbers, in properties, in the power of our decisions. But two girls showed me that I was wrong. True success lies in what we do for others, in how we use our resources to transform lives. A round of applause filled the room, and Victor looked at Anna and Lucia, who were watching him from a corner. That moment for him was the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another. At the end of the day, as the sunlight began to fade, the three of them sat on a bench in the center's garden. Lucia, tired but happy, snuggled up to Victor, who put a protective arm around her. Anna, looking out at the horizon, felt for the first time that they were truly safe, not just physically but emotionally. "Thank you, Victor," Anna murmured, breaking the silence. Victor looked at her and nodded, his voice warm and sincere. "Thank you for teaching me what really matters." The future was still uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. Anna, Lucia, and Victor, united by an unexpected bond, had found in their union not only a home, but also the strength to change the world, one step at a time. The story teaches us that sometimes the smallest decisions can have a profound impact on the lives of others, and that true change begins when we dare to look beyond ourselves. What would you have done in Victor's place? Would you have taken the risk of breaking away from what was known to help someone in need? Or would you have preferred to keep your life intact? Reflect on this, because our choices define who we really are. Click on the video on screen to continue this inspiring journey of self-discovery and learn how small actions can transform the world. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that invite you to think, reflect, and act. See you in the next video.